Hello, everyone, and I hope you can all hear me and see me. And I'm happy to chair this session, and particularly because I'm a beekeeper's daughter, so I'm excited to hear what the team has in mind and what is pollinator citizen science activity. And before we start, I just wanted to remind you that the questions are very welcome, and we will, with the team, address them at the end of the session. The whole session will last for 1 hour with 3 presenters. And I would like to introduce the first speaker, which is going to be Poppy, and who is a citizen science project manager as well as global change ecologist. And as a second speaker, there will be Andrea, who is the director of Natural History Museum of Maremma, which is based in Italy. So if you have a chance, please visit them. And as the last speaker, it's going to be Advaith from Open University, who is actually working on citizen science and artificial intelligence. So I'm very excited to hear this exciting initiative and learn a lot from you. And as said before, questions are very welcome. So the floor is yours, Poppy.
Okay, thank you very much for joining this session. What a fascinating conference it's been so far, and it's really brilliant to be part of it. So the focus for this hour is on cross-cultural settings, a topic so pertinent at an international conference, and particularly as the world of citizen science becomes ever more connected. We wanted to discuss with you our experience in taking the tools that were originally UK-based and improving them for use over wider geographic areas and with wider audiences. So you can see the aims of the session here. If the technology is behaving itself correctly, shout if there is an issue. So through a mixture of live demos, videos, quiz questions, and importantly, your feedback, we want to make this session as interactive as possible and understand how the platforms that we have created and are indeed in the process of creating are useful to you, and importantly, work with you going forward. In the words of the Institute for European Environmental Policy report on pollinator initiatives in EU member states, a strong integrated approach would facilitate coherent and focused EU action for addressing pollinator declines. We very much want to respond to this. So in terms of the structure of the talk, it's broadly split up into 4 sections. We'll start off with information about the evolution of our project and provide context as to the drivers behind cross-cultural working, before moving on to hearing about the work that we've been doing in Italy. We shall then demonstrate a number of the tools which integrate artificial intelligence before hearing about your feedback. You can track the progress at the bottom of the screen, which will hopefully be helpful for those joining the session midway through. Our team consists of technologists, educators and ecologists, and a number of us will be pitching in throughout the hour, as Baiba mentioned. So to kick off, yes, I am Dr. Poppy Lakeman Fraser, Citizen Science Manager at Imperial College, and indeed X's first coordinator. So it's particularly wonderful to see how the association is supporting a flourishing community of projects across Europe now. You'll also hear from Andrea Advaith, who presents shortly, and we have Annie, Julie and Helen responding to any comments or questions that you may have in the chat bar on Twitter and on the platform Padlet. So speaking of Padlet, we plan to use this platform, which basically gathers your comments via digital sticky notes. I believe the conference organisers will be sharing the Padlet link and Twitter handle in the chat function with you now. So as we're aware, there's a slight delay. We plan to gather and respond to your comments towards the end of the hour. We'd love to hear from you. So in the first column, the blue column here, please give us your feedback on the tools. You can get as technical as you like with AI queries, and perhaps mention how you could envisage using them for your own work. In the second column, in green, we'd really love to join with others working in the field of pollinator citizen science and those using AI and citizen science. So one of the talks on the opening night chimed a chord with us when they spoke about taking the ego out of the project. So we are very much interested in hearing for you how it could benefit you, what other projects we could join up to, how you'd see it operating. i.e. could it be something like a community of practice? It was very interesting to listen to the We Observe talk yesterday about COPs, or perhaps would it take another form? And then in the third column, please note down any other thoughts or questions you might have throughout the session. Alternatively, or in addition to, please tweet us at X-Polli project and or using the hashtag X-Polli. We've just set up this account, so as we move into a new phase of the project, we would really like to start the conversation with you. So we warmly welcome your comments. And I'm sure you're very familiar that you can use the chat function in Vimeo now, which we'll respond to either throughout the session with our team members or at the end. So please do get involved. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, we have a few questions we would like to pose to you. You may already know the answers, but if not, no need to panic. They will be revealed throughout the session as we demonstrate the tool's functionality. So firstly, what is this bumblebee? And what would be the most appropriate plant to attract it into your garden? So food for thought there. So I'm going to start off with a bit of background about the cross-pollination project to provide some context. So why pollinator citizen science? Pollination is an example of interconnectedness. We are part of a common ecosystem. They live on our doorstep. Up to 15 billion euros of the EU's annual agriculture output is directly attributed to insect pollinators. So logic assumes that participants are more likely to be engaged with environmental issues that impact their food source. Citizen science projects like this can be conducted anywhere. Indeed, collecting information in private spaces, such as gardens and school grounds, is arguably more important to aid the formal monitoring schemes in reserves and grasslands. Bees and butterflies are normally big hits with young and older audiences alike. Most media attention is on the domesticated honeybee, but they can be tempting lures to grab people's attention to raise awareness about hoverflies, solitary bees, beetles, supporting pollinator diversity in general. It is possible with tools to fill monitoring gaps. The IEEP 2017 report suggests that there is little information about trends in pollinator abundance in the EU, but losses are probably significant. There's currently no systematic monitoring of wild bees or hoverflies in any EU country, but there are monitoring schemes in 17 EU countries. And then finally, taking action. Planting even a window box can make a huge difference, creating corridors of habitats and feeding resources for pollinators. Easy, small steps are possible for everyone. So some of the drivers behind the project. By their very nature, projects start and finish, but with such valuable resources being created across the field, we felt there was huge wastage in investment and a loss of community when funding for citizen science projects came to an end. There are also lots of standalone projects on similar topics, which can be a confusing landscape for members of the public confronted with a bewildering array of options. We therefore saw huge potential in combining forces to create a package of improved tools and approaches which support users on their scientific journey, from gathering data through to taking action and sharing findings, which rather than reinventing the wheel in different European countries, are expanded across geographic boundaries. We wanted to integrate artificial intelligence with citizen science, create online learning materials under Creative Commons licenses. So cross-pollination therefore aims to create a buzz for pollinators by supporting people to learn about and protect them, practice to improve citizen science tools, and of course pollinators by creating more habitat and supporting campaigns for their protection. We used initial funding to work with a small number of pilot schools in Hampshire in the UK and Tuscany in Italy. And I mentioned that we had a number of the team on the call based at the OU, Natural History Museum, Maremma, University of Aberdeen, St Albans CFE Primary School, but we also have additional collaborators at these institutions, as well as Learning Through Landscapes. We gained initial funding from National Geographic and obtained a subsequent grant from EPSRC to develop the AI component of tools. And this is a model that we'd very much like to take going forward, expanding and adapting approaches and resources with new partners and funding across Europe and globally. The project was mentioned in the UKRI's Vision for Public Engagement, their 2019 report, as an example of where citizen science can improve research and promote learning. You can find details of our project at the newly created cross-pollination.org website and on the Twitter account here. So, thinking about the actionable citizen science cycle, I mentioned that the project has developed a full suite of pollinator citizen science tools and approaches beyond just data collection. These also align with the 4 lesson plans undertaken within schools, each tackling one stage of the scientific process. Finding out about a topic and getting trained on how to identify nature. Taking conservation action to create feeding and nesting resources for pollinators. Collecting data through structured survey design for young participants, and then using this knowledge and expertise, encouraging other members of the community to record and protect pollinators by spreading the message. So we've created a number of resources for schools. So these survey booklets, the teacher training handbooks and training slides for students and teachers to use in the playground and in the classroom. And we have developed the training, recording and planting tools online, which Advaith will run you through shortly. So this isn't just school-based work. Responding to the need for free online learning resources during COVID-19 lockdown in the UK, Advaith and the OU team led the development of a MOOC, which was promoted by DEFRA during the Bees Needs Week, which is a campaign every July to promote government advice about supporting pollinators. It is a cross-pollinated resource for pollinator citizen science and hosted on the Open Learn Create platform and is available to all for use under the Creative Commons license. Suitable for anyone aged 7 and above with supervision. And you can see the content here, ranging from identifying common bumblebee and butterfly species to learning about pollination process and why it matters, planting for pollinators, tips on making simple changes to your garden that really make a difference, and learning about the concept of citizen science. Each module takes between an hour and 2. Please do check it out after the session. So we wanted to talk now about how this is operated in the Italian arm of the project. So I will hand over to Andrea, who has been leading on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Poppy. And I will carry on by saying that insect pollination is a vital driving force, essential for plant reproduction, hence for biodiversity, and for our food supply of healthy food. While pollinators are in strong decline, we know that 1 in 10 bee and butterfly species in Europe is on the verge of extinction. Pollinators and their habitats are disappearing due to several factors. Among the most important are the intensive agricultural management, land use change, climate change, but also pathogens, pesticide use, environmental pollution, and also invasive alien species. This topic has already reached a considerable level of public awareness. About 94% of the respondents to the EU public consultation on this subject think that the decline of pollinators is alarming. In recent years, the EU has put in place a range of measures beneficial to pollinators, such as the protection of their natural habitats, support for beekeeping, and restriction to the use of pesticides harmful to bees. Yet, these measures have not been sufficient to safeguard pollinators. This is why the European Commission launched the EU Pollinators Initiative in 2018. This initiative aims to address the decline of wild pollinators in the EU and includes 10 actions under 3 priority themes: improving knowledge of pollinator decline, tackling its causes of pollinator decline and raising awareness, engaging society and promoting collaboration. Among the main aim of this initiative is the list below. So develop a monitoring system for pollinators, more research on the causes and consequences of pollinator declines, create knowledge hub on pollinators, increase contribution of EU policies to pollinator conservation, engage citizens and businesses in action for pollinators. So most of this action, in most of this action, citizen science can be of help. It can give a contribute, quite an important one. So citizen science can contribute to this cause, and different projects have been developed during the last years in different countries with different approaches. In particular, we believe that building up upon existing experiences is a key point to maximize the strength and the output, avoiding reinventing the wheel. So in Italy, we started looking at this, just looking at the pollination project that was developed in the past by the Learning Through Landscape and in the framework of the Opal project based in UK. So we decided, together with the British colleagues, to launch a pilot project called PolliBright, because in that case, we matched with Bright. Bright is the European Night of Research in Tuscany. So engaging the universities, engaging 1 year, we collaborated with our British colleagues and adapted the tools that the pollination project have developed. There was lots of different tools, from booklets to online activities, tests, and materials that training materials as well. So adapting was not a mere work of adapting or translating, but we also had to adapt to the Italian species, to the Italian context, and we learned that, for example, working on the school grounds were not the same in UK and in Italy. So given also the weather and many other differences, we opted for using botanic gardens. Even because the PolliBright was the night of research, all the universities were involved, and the botanic garden in Tuscany are managed by universities. So we collaborated with them, and scholars went out to the botanic garden for their gathering data and to collect information. And these are the main results that we showed. That the project PolliBright was launched in 2018, and then for Bright, the Night of Research 2019, we presented in different cities the results gathered by lots of different schools in different cities, and this was done by using booklets, posters, and a video. There were 6 different cities involved: Grosseto, Pisa, Siena, Florence in Tuscany, but also 2 cities outside Tuscany, Bologna and Viterbo. We then were able to train 45 teachers to engage about 15 schools, 30 classes, and about 600 scholars were involved. In the meantime, we were collaborating with other British colleagues in the cross-polly project. There was an evolution of the pollination and PolliBright. So while cross-polly has already been launched in UK, we were planning to do the launch in Italy in last March, but due to the COVID-19 situation, we had to postpone it. So we are just waiting for the launch of the project, but teachers have been already trained, and we are just waiting for the situation to calm down to start with our activities. A very important activity in the framework of the cross-pollination project, which is much wider, and in a minute Advaith will speak about the other component of the project, is the Polli Promise. When you sign up to the pollinator promise, you pledge to plant a plot or put aside 1 by 1 meter area in your garden school grounds, or business to grow pollinator-friendly habitats. These plants provide food and shelter for pollinating insects. People, scholars, but anyone can participate, can help a lot the conservation of pollinators just with a very simple action. By now, 1,943 polypromises have been made so far, and to create 4,653 square meters of pollinator-friendly habitat. Thank you very much for your attention, and now I hand over to Advaith for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Andrea. I'll wait for my screen to come up here. Is my screen visible? Okay. So, I'm going to talk about the technologies being used in the cross-polli project. I'll be demoing these tools now, highlighting the 3 technologies on the left. We've developed these for bumblebees originally, but in the spirit of cross-pollination, we've adapted our tools firstly to work in English and Italian, also to work for bumblebees and for butterflies, and finally, for ease of use by kids in schools. So we've essentially developed systems which make our tools easy to modify and reuse. I'd like to touch on the principle of empowerment. So to us, species identification is a means for citizens to enact a relationship with nature, primarily through observation. Observation, we know, is central to learning, but by engaging citizens in this way, we also seek to influence their relationship with nature and to empower them to take action. So you can very much imagine a bunch of camera traps taking photographs which are automatically analyzed by machines, providing data for biological recording. But to us, such an approach misses the point. We want people to engage with nature and for AI to empower them to do so. So the technologies we develop are to support these goals, and we'd be very keen to hear back from you on your thoughts on how you think our approaches work or don't work. So feel free to comment on Padlet, and also please have a go at the tools. You just need a guest login. So now I'm going to demo the identification tool. So this is our first tool. It's to help you learn to distinguish species of bumblebee. So on the left, you see a picture of a bumblebee. And on the right, when you log in, you will see the easy interface with 8 options of bumblebee species. And in the middle, you have a species identification key. So if it looks like a daunting task, you can look at the picture and say, I see one yellow stripe on the round bit on the top, which is the thorax, and I can select that. And that hides all the species which don't match. And then I can look at the abdomen and say, that looks like black, yellow, black, white. Here's black, yellow, black, white. And now I'm down to 2 species. And now the problem is the worker of the buff-tailed bumblebee looks a lot like the queen of the white-tail. And if I hover over it, it tells me that I can only distinguish these if there is a hint of a buff color at the top of the white band. And I can't see this here. So if I go with white-tailed bumblebee and submit my identification, I get some feedback. This feedback's produced by machine, and it's produced in Italian and in English by machine. And it basically highlights the key features we're meant to be looking at. So we are reinforcing what people need to observe to make these distinctions. And if you click on OK, we get the next bumblebee. And we can keep doing this and see our scores on the left here. There are 4 levels of difficulty. In the medium level, you see some new species, including some hard to identify cuckoo species, and some less common, but still reasonably common species. I'll go straight to the hard version. And this is now 22 species of bumblebee in the UK. You now see that the task is quite challenging. Even if I select a thorax which matches, I now have to compare visually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different species. And that's hard going. So this is where we incorporate artificial intelligence. So this is automated image recognition trained on our data set. It gets the right answer around 50% of the time. And the right answer is in the top 3 around 80% of the time. The good news is we don't need it to be perfect as a technology. And what we wanted to do is help people. So here, the way we want people to use it is say, hang on, it's suggesting something with a red tail. I don't have a red tail. Let me use the key. So that looks like a black and white tail. And if I click that, the AI changes its recommendation. I can say, hang on, the thorax doesn't look buff. The thorax is yellow and black. And then it changes its identifications again. And now you can go through the same process and kind of ask yourself, how do I tell if it's a southern cuckoo? And it says, it's like a gypsy cuckoo, but the yellow patches are more prominent. And we click on that and submit. We find out if you're right, and indeed we are. So this tool exists for bumblebees and butterflies. And I'll quickly move on to our other tool, which is called planting for pollinators. Now, the answer to the question Poppy asked you on the first slide is that was a garden bumblebee. And if I click on a garden bumblebee here, I see a bunch of flowers that citizen scientists have recorded the garden bumblebee sitting on. So we see that you're likely to see it on foxgloves, azaleas, garden nasturtiums, and so on. The text tells us that this is a specialist flower visitor. Essentially, it has a long face and a long tongue, and it can go deep inside these tubular flowers. We can ask the question the other way around. We can click on the garden nasturtium, and we see that actually it attracts very few species of bumblebees. The nectar is quite hard to get at, and you need quite specialized skills to do that. And essentially, you can play with this endlessly. You can click on another bee and see what flowers it sits on. And you can click on another flower and see what it attracts. And the last thing I'd like to demo is our recommender system. So let's select the nasturtium again. And if we click submit here, it tells us that according to our records, these are the 3 species most commonly seen on that flower. It also tells us this flower is only available from July to the middle of September. So if we want to ensure pollen for it in early season, we have to plant something else. For example, a primrose, that looks pretty, or a gorse, that might overwhelm a small garden. So let's see what happens if we plant a primrose here. So if a garden has an nasturtium and a primrose, we see suddenly we have the potential to attract a lot more species of bumblebee. And you get new recommendations on good plants that would attract this new set. So essentially what we've done here is we've thrown back citizen science data back at the citizens say, you're now allowed to take action. You can use the data you've collected yourself to go to your garden and plant something which helps pollinators in your local area. I hope that came through all right on the video channel. And I've finished now, thank you. So I wonder if you could now play the Polly Promise clip.
Hello, we are St Albans School from Havant, and we've started an amazing and fun project called Pollinator Promise. In our school, we have lots of different sections for pollinators, bugs, and other insects. Everyone in the school is involved.
We plant pollinators because 80% of our food comes from them, and without them we'd be left without a lot of things.
We work together by doing it in buddies, and we all help each other. We all do it in one big team.
Every break time, I now go out to look at the bee wall that I made with my granddad, and it just makes me very happy to look at it.
It is important to help the wildlife because they are homeless and hungry, and they need our help.
Pollinators have given me a voice. From 3 years ago when I wouldn't speak to anyone, now I'm speaking to big groups, over 300.
This project has been a big success, and you can get involved with it in your garden.
You can be any age to do this. You can even be as old as my great nan. I inspired her to join the Pollinator Promise, and she's done it in her garden where she lives. You can inspire your local businesses or your MP. You can help us by planting pollinator-friendly flowers, letting your grass grow long, and not using pesticides.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Advaith and Andrea. So moving into the final section of our talk now, which is very much the interactive part. So we would like to hear back about your comments and questions. I am sharing screen now. Hopefully you can see that coming up now. So what we'd like to do here is just kind of summarize where we're up to with the presentation so far. So our take-home messages are really that pollination is a topic that lends itself really well to citizen science approaches and could answer key monitoring and conservation gaps at a European scale. We'd love to work with you to build bigger, better tools, and we want to create a nourishing environment for practitioners and participants wishing to build a pollinator citizen science community. So hopefully through that kind of information, us demonstrating the tools from the training to the conservation action through to spreading the word gives you a taster of our project. and we'd really like to hear about some of the feedback that you've been sending through. So in terms of summary from Padlet and feedback on Twitter, I see a number of comments have been coming through. So Baiba, would you like to kind of summarize where we're up to on that?
Yeah, perfect. We have loads of positive feedback and encouraging words for you guys to continue the work, and also on the collaboration. And there were a few technical questions as well. I will first of all just address what also was asked by Elisa about this whole video and all the information, where it is available, and also from other citizen science experts, if you are also willing to share the information on EU citizen science platform. And a sort of question to you, Poppy, which is also reflecting what was said in the discussion of the chat by participants. These easy steps, how do you actually start? And do you actually need a coordinator to bring these little steps forward? Meaning if you have to have a coordinator to actually distribute the different tasks. So what is your reflection on that? And could you comment a bit more?
Okay, thank you for your comments and questions. So in terms of the easy steps, the way that one of the schools that we are working with in the project, with one of our key collaborators, Julie, is that her students set up what was called the Pollinator Promise, which was to set aside 1 meter square or a plant pot or a window box, plant pollinator-friendly plants, perhaps informed by the Planting for Pollinators tool, and that being a very simple step you could take to start to provide resources for pollinators on your doorstep. They set out a campaign, the Polly Promise, to really share this amongst their community. So they, as you heard, reached out to MPs, local businesses, and a whole spectrum of different target groups. And this was just one step that they took to kind of spread the message further. But in terms of thinking about what those kind of small steps could be in different kind of cultural contexts, for different user groups, I think that'd be a really interesting benefit of setting up a community like this. So you could have kind of a melting pot of ideas on a platform which would stimulate thoughts about those simple steps that you could take that would really make a difference. So I think that's a really nice kind of reason for us to join together and kind of think about how we build this community.
That's yeah, there's a lot to grasp, and I think we're super good in time. So just a reminder also for the participants that you can bring more questions in, and also after the session, which is still going, there will be also a breakout session in the Zoom, and you can find the link in the X homepage under our session. However, there is more questions coming. So this one, I think, Poppy, you also can answer. I don't know if Andrea can be also brought into the screen, but this is about schools. So basically, the involvement of schools in pollinator actions. How easy was it to sort of collaborate with these number of schools? And also about, is it challenging for them to actually do the work, or is it, you know, easy for them to bring the action further? So yes, and I think that we can also bring Andrea in and answer the question.
Yes, thank you. It was pretty easy because scholars were really very happy to collaborate, and we talked with the teacher before and well prepared with the training tools. I shall say that since the beginning we had to change a little bit the way data were collected. Because, you know, as in any research, when you try in the field what you have scheduled since the beginning, you can discover that maybe the time that allowed for scholars to collect data is not enough. So we changed a lot together with our British colleagues, even from the Pollination project to the cross-polli project, allowed more time for the scholars to collect data. And also we did some little changes. But anyway, the collaboration and the participation was very, very, very good. They were, and other schools are asking, even in these days, other cities want to join.
Well, that's perfect. This is an exemplary case. I hope you produce sort of a protocol how to collaborate on such actions with schools. I particularly think that also Latvia, as my home country, would be interested in such collaboration. So I definitely paid attention to this. And yes, this was super about the schools, but then again about these guiding documents. Do you also sort of, and this is both to Andrea and Poppy, but I think the guiding documents, maybe Poppy can answer about it. These guidelines on what to do, and also these planting guidelines, as I understood, are they available to all the public, and in which sort of language?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we really wanted to start off with a small number of schools so we could pilot these approaches and techniques to see what was working with who. So we kind of had buy-in from a small number of schools to start with, but the impetus behind the project was to use this as a trial and really kind of expand into other European countries, and to learn from that development process. We really thought we'd start off on developing resources which are kind of very much hand-holding for teachers. So these hard copies of teacher support guides, where it would take you through the lessons in turn to really kind of raise confidence of those teachers, and take them through the various stages of the scientific process. So there's a number of those resources available on the cross-pollination.org website, which anyone has access to. So yeah, please do to take a look at those. And we're really keen to take these resources and adapt them in different ways. So if there is interest from different countries adapting into different languages and different contexts, then yeah, more than happy to talk to people about how they'd like to adapt those.
This is exciting, and there are more questions coming in, and I would also like Advaith to come in the session. And before, I will first address one question to Advaith, and then go to schools again and cross-cultural sort of comparison or adjustment to you, Andrea. So first, there was a comment that is brilliant tool, Advaith, and the question comes also from my side and with the participants about the difficultness of it. So basically, is it also adaptable for different ages, or this tool is, for experts or, let's say, citizen science practitioners which are very used to these tools? Or how would you explain this tool in terms of easiness?
We trialed it in a primary school in England. We got lots of feedback from the kids, quite sophisticated feedback, I should say. So what really bothered them was the fact that you can't see the size of the insect on the picture, while in the field, size would be one of the key indicators for some distinctions. We've modified the interface to make it easier for kids to use, and in our last evaluation, which Julie conducted, they were very happy with it, with the interaction with the AI. So this is between the 7 and 11-year-olds using the tool under supervision in a classroom.
That's perfect. And this actually turns to the following participant chat, which I can see is a lot about also adaptation, both on the whole method and initiative, but also the tools. So
I think the tool itself. I think the tool itself is quite simple. My 4-year-old daughter can use it, but as a resource to learn, clearly you have to be a bit older. So she can look at the picture and say it's this thorax and this abdomen, and click on the right bee, but that's a game and it ends there. So she's not yet at the stage where she can name the species of bumblebee or learn the names of things. So I think you can start them off young, but perhaps a 10-year-old would make the best use of this.
Super. This is already very practical sort of aspect you mentioned. That's very nice in respect to using the tool. But there are more questions coming in, and I think there's a 20-second delay, so this brings even more curiosity what will the questions bring next. But there is one theme which is going through the questions about this cross-cultural application, meaning is a difference in motivation of the different schools or regions and also cultures of the countries. And this first goes to Andrea to answer in respect of this application to other countries and other schools and differences you feel when you do the initiatives. Andrea?
Yeah, the cross-cutting issue was in the title, but for us was mainly starting to start with. So we just trying to adapt these several different tools from the UK to Italy, just as a pilot study and a first trial. And the idea is to widespread in other countries in Europe. So it's just the first stage, the very beginning of what we hope could be a sharing much wider, not only of our tools, but also including the tools that other projects on insect pollinators may have, developed. So about differences, we didn't perform any analysis at the moment and didn't confront the different approaches. But the main topic is that the way schools are managed in Italy and UK, it's quite different. So having a school background, playgrounds very organized with the room, the space enough to plant for pollinators and so on, or having no room but having the need to move for another place. In this case, for ourselves, was the botanic garden makes a difference. But anyway, the real difference are the teachers, because teacher motivated can bring classroom and scholars within the project, and then most of the success, from my point of view, are teachers. And this is possibly something common between the UK experience and the Italian one.
Poppy, could you comment also?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've certainly had feedback over time, kind of working with different students at Imperial, and the feedback they've gave from different European countries is that there's different levels of interest in taking part in citizen science in general. So it's kind of thinking about tapping into what is useful to participants and kind of really rolling with that. So, we have been kind of building this platform in order to be able to kind of share our best practices. And I think those the curricular links, I think one of the comments about building in those to make it very relevant to teachers is something that has been a kind of key factor here. I think particularly at the moment, motivation for schools getting involved, we're very much learning in terms of this COVID-19 crisis, because we are really going to be trying to gauge what are the priorities for schools now that students are starting to return back, and what kind of appetite there is to kind of continue programs like this. So making sure they are linked into the curriculum, I think, is going to be more important than ever.
This, I guess, also explains the sustainability of the actions, which also the participants are mentioning about the long run. So when the school teacher or the motivated teacher leaves, who takes the action? But as you mentioned, if it's part of curriculum, then it makes it quite easy. I have one question for Advaith before we run out, because I know you have in mind a breakout session. So I would like Poppy also explain a bit what is the breakout session will be after these 12 minutes, because we're super good in time, and so how to join and what will happen there. And then after Poppy, I will have a question to Advaith. So a bit about what's happened after. Poppy, please.
Yeah, sure. So we're planning on having a Zoom session to delve into some of these questions and comments in more detail. So we very much welcome everyone on the call and wider to join. The link is on the programme page and hopefully being pasted into the chat around now. So we'd really like to hear directly from a number of people raising these questions so we can have a bit more of a two-way conversation. And if you do want to work with us, I'd really encourage you to get in contact. I don't know if you can see my screen at the moment, but my email address is on there. So people wanting to build communities, adapt tools, then please do get in contact. But we'll share this on the Zoom link as well.
Perfect. I will definitely join and try also to facilitate a bit further. And we're still in super good in time. So the link is also shared in the participant chat of the Zoom. So that's perfect. And Poppy, if you can put your email down, then also the technical personnel will share it. And Advaith, there's a question about applying this tool to different species. And as I understood the question right, about species which might not be so appealing, but still very valuable. Do you have a comment about it?
This could take a while. When 10 years ago we decided to do bumblebees, part of the reason for doing bumblebees is there were around 25 species in the UK, and it was a number which seemed manageable. The distinctions were non-trivial. You could focus on observation quite intensely, but you could still fit 22 species on the screen with a little bit of scrolling. To move to butterflies, there's around 60 species in the UK. If you were to move to moths, that's 1,000, to beetles, 10,000. And this key-based identification with filters starts falling apart as a system. So the AI is really nice here because it allows you to filter out the likely species and continue to use the approach we began with for species groups that have much larger numbers of species. So I think this is something we would like to do. You need sufficient data to train the model. So of course, if you have 10,000 species of beetle, you need around 50 images per species to. I mean, what's nice about the way we're doing it is you don't need image recognition to be perfect. You need. You can have it work with the citizens to arrive at the right answer. And we've just begun this journey. So.
Yeah, but from the participants' involvement and sort of engagement in the chat, we can already feel that there's a lot of additional ideas. So I think you have a lot of collaborative work to come. My question, as we still have time, and we have 9 minutes, so we will try to adjust a few questions more, and then of course have time to say thank you to the participants. But there's one question.
Can I say something
Sure.
quickly about the previous question about schools and the engagement with schools? At least in the UK,
Nice.
one thing we're seeing, not necessarily as part of the cross-polli project, but as part of people contacting us about using this stuff elsewhere, is the role of charities. So, of course, Learning Through Landscapes are a partner with us, but I'm aware of another charity in the northeast of Scotland called OSF, One Seed Forward. And they work in hard-to-reach schools in poor areas, where the kids typically live in tower blocks, don't have much access to green space. And they're trying to use schools as an equitable way of engaging people with the outdoors. So around gardening and planting food plants and things like that. So I think there's many initiatives which are targeting schools in different ways around gardening and nature. And they're not always tied to our project, but you discover things occasionally by talking to people in strange contexts. Over to you, Baiba.
This is exactly what my question was. Yeah, this is perfect because Advaith, you actually brought what I wanted to ask is about the bottom-up approach, meaning that the people actually come with the idea. So basically what you said is it's not necessarily your project target, but you can still tackle the issues citizens are interested in. I think that's what science also should be about in parts. So so that's exciting that you're very open for new ideas. Is there any comment from you, sort of asking also to the participants still, because we still have a few minutes. So Poppy, is there anything you would like to remind about the Padlet?
Yeah, so please do kind of follow that link, and the specific feedback on the AAO tools and how they could be useful to you. That'd be really interesting to hear about. I believe there's a call to talk specifically about working in schools and building communities from that standpoint. So I think it'd be really great to delve into this in the Zoom breakout afterwards. So yes, please do join us for that, and keep your comments coming.
That's perfect. I don't see any more new participant questions, or however, there are lots about congratulations and the follow-ups. And as I mentioned, also EU Citizen Science Platform is keen to receive also the cooperation possibility. And yeah, just to remind about the Padlet, and there's also Twitter, as I understood, Poppy, right? The possibility to ask more questions there. Perfect. And as you can see, there is also a Zoom session showing up, and we have 5 minutes still. Is there, Andrea, Advaith, any questions to the participants? We have 20-second delay, but I think we can still manage if there is anything you would like them to question about or ask about, or whatever. Bring it on, Andrea, Advaith.
But our idea was to briefly show what we are doing, and one of the main aim is to do networking. So please follow us in the breakout session, and we'll discuss more in detail how this could happen. Thank you.
I've been trying desperately to follow what's happening on the chat at the same time. I have 2 screens open here, out of sync. But it's all a little bit too much. So there are several bits in the chat about collaborating and using some of these resources in other contexts. And I think, as Andrea said, that's the reason we are here. We're open to sharing what we have. And as part of this COVID thing, we've discovered that it's not just the tools; it's also the written materials, and the system we had for using paper materials in schools doesn't scale. So we've started putting everything in more systematic ways on the Open Learn Create platform, and hopefully that encourages people to share and reuse these things.
Perfect. As said in the very beginning, I'm a beekeeper's daughter. So for me, this is subject close to my heart. And so I definitely going to follow and try this tool, which I have not explored yet. So I'm keen if I'm going to understand it, but I'm sure there are guiding materials for that. And the time is out, and we're super perfect. And thank you for the participants as well. Reminder about the Zoom, which is shown also in the chat. And thank you, Poppy, Advaith, Andrea, and the whole of the team, which has been putting the information up. And yes, see you in the breakout session.
Bye-bye.